All right, what's up, YouTube? Back with another presentation. And I don't know if I'm even going to bother editing this video. I mean, I figure probably not. The way things have been going for me on this YouTube channel this week and stuff, I spent, a lot of time, editing some previous videos. And you know where it got me? Absolutely friggin' nowhere. It's weird. People are yelling. Some people, they yell at me in the comments section. They're like, why don't you do more video editing in these videos? Why don't you put photographs on this screen and do all kinds of fancy schmancy retention editing and all kinds of stuff? You know what? And I've tried doing that recently, as you can see in some of my more recent videos. And you know where it got me? Absolutely nowhere. In fact, it's weird. My analytics have actually been worse since doing the video retention editing. Apparently, the people that are tuning into this channel, they don't want to see a bunch of fancy schmancy video editing, apparently. They don't want to see me doing all kinds of graphics and bullshit. Apparently they don't. Because ever since I started doing that, you know what? I haven't gotten any new subscribers, and in fact, people have actually unsubscribed from the channel since I've been doing, video retention editing and the graphics, the pictures, and putting music on the videos. Apparently, the people that want to see this channel, well, they just want to see me doing the videos in the raw. Maybe they want to feel like it's like I'm in the room talking to them and stuff. They don't want to see a bunch of slick video production, I guess. Apparently not. Because I do a bunch of video production, and what happens? People unsubscribe from the channel, or people don't subscribe at all. So apparently it hasn't got me anywhere. So, hey, I tried. It didn't work out. Hey, you gotta roll the dice and try sometimes, That's the way it is. But anyway, let's talk about TNA Slammiversary, their pay-per-view from, June 28th, 2026. We'll talk about that, and we'll see what's going on with that. I'll give you my honest opinion. I mean, I don't know what other people have said. I've been intentionally avoiding other, social media sites. I don't want to see what these other social media people are saying, because I'm sure I'll probably disagree with them, and then they'll see my video. They might even be commenting in my video section saying, hey, you're an idiot if you thought that, if you thought this, or whatever. That's how people are. I mean, they act like if you think something different from what they think, that means you're a terrible person and stuff. At least that's what they tell me. Well, the hell with them. I'm not worrying about what some of these other content creators like freaking James Romero and Brian Alvarez and whatever, Bobby Monsoon and whatever. I'm sure they're going to disagree with me, so I'm not looking at anything. I'm not worrying about what the hell they're saying and what everybody's saying. I'm worrying about what I'm saying, and that's it. All right, so let's talk about this show here, TNA Slammiversary 2026 from June 28th. 2026 here. Well, we'll talk about it. The event ended up lasting like 4 hours here, if you include the 4-hour countdown show, which had some exclusive matches on it, so that's good. That's more than WWE can be bothered to do. They don't put any exclusive matches on their freaking countdown shows anymore. Jeez. Anyway, so let's talk about this show, and we'll see what's going on here. Anyway, TNA Slammiversary show had a 1-hour countdown show, and basically it ran from 3 to 4 p.m., and the pay-per-view itself was 4 to 7 p.m., and basically the reason why they did that was because it's 7 o'clock. That's when WWE NXT Great American Bash, that's when that started airing, and also All Elite Wrestling Forbidden Door 2026, that started at 7 p.m. as well for their countdown show, so that's why TNA decided to wrap it up at 7 p.m. So anyway, we'll talk about it here. And, we have this show here filmed at the Agnes Arena in Boston, Massachusetts, and basically, this show, TNA had announced, okay, this is going to be in honor former TNA wrestler Joe Doring, who unfortunately, sadly, recently passed away of brain cancer at the young age of 44. Ay, ay, ay. Now, he wrestled in TNA. He had a couple stints in TNA, and he was there in 2005 through 2006. Now, he wasn't under contract at the time. Sometimes he wrestled under the name Vaughn Doring, but his main time in TNA wrestling was from 2020 through 2022. And TNA Wrestling, they recently put up, there was a 2.5-hour compilation of Joe Doring's, best matches in TNA. They said, so maybe I'll go back and check that out there. And anyway, let's talk about the matches that were on the countdown show there. We have first match here. We had a no disqualification, no countout match here. And the way I'll do this, I'll talk about, a lot of these wrestlers now, I know a lot of people these days, they don't watch TNA wrestling, but see, the thing is, a lot of these people in TNA wrestling right now, they're former people, they're people that were formerly in WWE, but a lot of them go by different names right now, so I'll talk about what the name they used to go by in WWE, just so that way, if you haven't watched TNA in 10, 20 years, you'll know who these people are, because a lot of these people, they're probably people that you just don't know them by that name. So let's talk about this. So, okay, we got that first match, countdown show match, no disqualification or countout, triple threat match here. We have Mara Sade. Now, she's formerly known as Jakara Jackson of WWE NXT, and she's going up against Indy Hartwell, who's formerly of WWE, versus Elena Black, who she's formerly known as Cora Jade of WWE NXT. Now, all right, in this match here, we have Elena Black won a solid, decisive win by pinning Mara Sade, and this was her biggest and best win in TNA wrestling so far since, she's been in TNA, and this match ran 5 minutes and 2 seconds, but the thing is, since WWE fired Cora Jade, and now known as Elena Black, she's been in TNA quite a bit, but the thing is with Elena Black, she's mainly just used as a jobber. They just have her, they're just having her on the payroll to lose all the time. So, hey, now maybe she has a victory over Mara Sade. Maybe this is a sign, she's going up in the rankings. Maybe they're going to start having her win some matches for once or something in TNA. So there you have it right there. So, it wasn't a bad match. It was nothing blow away or anything like that, but it wasn't bad. I got no freaking complaints about it. So, anyway, up next on the countdown show, we have a former TNA star of the past. We have Tracy Brooks. Now, she was here making a special guest one-shot appearance here today. And basically what she announced was that TNA just created that TNA Knockouts Television Championship. They never had this championship before, and they're saying that they, basically, the thing is, they're going to start having, on the Thursday, July 2nd episode of TNA Impact, they're going to start having a 16-woman tournament to crown the first ever TNA Knockouts Television Championship, television champion, rather. And this is a championship belt that is only going to be defended on TNA Impact. It's not going to be defended on TNA pay-per-views or TNA premium live events, anything like that. It's only going to be defended on episodes of TNA Impact. So there you have it. Now we know that. So you never know. With a tournament of 16 women, you never know. They are kind of making it sound like, hey, you never know. It might be bringing in some former WWE wrestlers with all those people that WWE terminated earlier this year. Because, geez, a 16 women tournament, that's quite a few women there. All right, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that. Up next, I kind of thought it was kind of amusing that okay, they on the countdown show, the crowd, they announced, the iHeartRadio, okay, iHeartRadio, they're like, sponsoring TNA Wrestling. They had a few members of management out there. The crowd's booing the hell out of them. I thought that was kind of humorous just because ever since iHeartRadio has been sponsoring TNA Wrestling, these countdown shows have been a lot worse than they've ever been. I mean, for God's sake, what the hell, It used to be the countdown shows were like the first, 30 minutes of the TNA pay-per-view. And now with the iHeartRadio's in there, I don't know if iHeartRadio is basically telling them, all right, now that we're sponsoring you, you have to make these countdown shows like WWE's crappy countdown shows where you just put a bunch of highlights of previous matches on there. We don't want all these exclusive matches on there. Because before iHeartRadio got involved, TNA Wrestling, their countdown shows were good. I mean, they were only 30 minutes long. They were the first 30 minutes of the pay-per-view, and they would have 2 or 3 original exclusive matches right there. Now you got iHeartRadio putting their hands on things. Now the last pay-per-view TNA did, they only had 1 exclusive match in a whole freaking hour. Like, what the frick, You used to have 2 or 3 exclusive matches in 30 minutes. And now you got your hands on it, and now we got some crummy, WWE, countdown show. The frick, All right, but at least this time, they were more generous, okay? We had a 1-hour countdown show, and it had 2 exclusive matches. So that was good. And one was actually a pretty damn good match, so that's good there. We have the second match at TNA Slammiversary. That was on the countdown, and it was a good one. I'll tell you that much. We had Ricky Sosa versus Eric Young. This is the first time Ricky Sosa ever did a match on a TNA pay-per-view or a TNA premium live event, and we had Ricky Sosa going up against Eric Young. Now here you have Eric Young. Even if you never watched TNA before, I mean, you might know Eric Young from he was formerly wrestling in WWE from 2016 through 2021. Before, Vince McMahon, Vince McMahon terminated so many people in 2021. It was ridiculous, even though the company was making record-setting profits. And at the time when Vince McMahon terminated Eric Young from WWE in 2021, he was with a faction called Sanity. But anyway, after 2021, when Vince McMahon terminated Eric Young, he went back to his home base of TNA, and that's great because, hey, Eric Young, he's one of the TNA's best, that's for damn sure. And I'll tell you, in this match here, well, it was an entertaining match here. It went about 5 minutes and 53 seconds, and Ricky Sosa actually won a solid, decisive win over Eric Young, despite Eric Young gouging Ricky Sosa in his eyes and all that. I mean, this was a good match that really showed how talented Ricky Sosa is. It really helped to put him over as a current or future star of TNA. So it was good. I mean, I was actually surprised they put this on the countdown show because it absolutely deserved to be on the regular pay-per-view portion of this show. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, just to give my congratulations to Ricky Sosa for having such a great match in his first match on a TNA pay-per-view. So there you have it. Now, we're about at the hour mark here, and basically, 1 hour into the event, this is where the official pay-per-view starts. And here we were going to find out they're doing a tribute to former TNA wrestler Joe Doring that unfortunately passed away the last few weeks. I forget exactly if it was like June 24th, June 26th that he passed away. But, they were talking about that. They actually had one of his former tag team partners come out. We had the hometown man, Cody Deaner, came out. Now, it was weird how they did it. Now, okay, the hometown man, Cody Deaner, he always wrestles under a mask, That's the thing. But they had him come out not wearing a mask, and he was talking about how when Joe Doring used to be in TNA, You know, I mean, Cody Deaner used to be a tag team partner of Joe Doran. It was weird because now that they make Cody Deaner wear a mask and they call him the hometown man, they never mysteriously, they didn't want to tell you that guy who was giving that tribute to Joe Doran out there was actually the hometown man, Corey Deaner. They didn't want to say that because now he's not wearing the mask, so they just mysteriously didn't say anything. They never put his name on the screen because they wanted to make you think he's not that guy under mask called the hometown man, Cody Deaner. I mean, what the heck, But anyway, that's how that went, and so we'll go to the next match. Well, there's the third match in the event. So we had the 2 matches on the countdown show. Now we'll go to match 3. This is the first match of the pay-per-view, the first official match of the pay-per-view. Now, it was kind of a disappointment. I had high hopes for this. I really did. We had match 3 on the event. It was a no disqualification Ultimate X match for the TNA X Division Championship involving 7 wrestlers, I mean, so I thought, man, this has the capability. This could be one of the best matches on the whole damn show. But then I watch it, I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I was surprised at how short it was, and they just gave it a stupid screw job finish. I'm like, I was so freaking disappointed. Watching this thing, I'm already getting disappointed and frustrated. No surprise, because TNA, they like pissing everybody off. They like letting everybody down. Because that's how they are. Good Lord. Anyway, 7-way Ultimate X match, basically, where if you've never seen them before, there's these metal trusses, kind of like metal scaffolding. They got to climb this, and then they got the cables across the ring. They got to climb up there, pull the TNA X Division Championship down and drop down. And both their feet have to, hit the floor, and then they win the TNA X Division Championship here. But, okay, so the 7 wrestlers that this match featured was we got Cedric Alexander, the current TNA X Division Champion, and, he's formerly of WWE. You know him from WWE. And he's going up against Frankie Kazarian, which he actually spent 6 months in WWE in 2005, and he was in AEW for 5 years also. But most of his time, you've seen him wrestling. You've seen most of those years he's been in TNA. So Frankie Kazarian, he's out there, and this is actually his first Ultimate X match in 15 years. So we see Cedric Alexander and Frankie Kazarian. They're going up in there against Casey Navarro versus Fabian Eichner, formerly Giovanni Vinci of WWE. We've seen that Giovanni Vinci has been hired by TNA a few months back. So he's in this match. Now they're in there going up against Amazing Red. This is his first match in TNA in 15 years. So this is like a special occasion. I figure he's just doing a one-shot deal for right now. But it's good to see Amazing Red back, and if only for one match. And they're in there going up against Mr. Elegance, who was formerly known as a, jobber AJZ, but they just call him Mr. Elegance right now. And Mr. Elegance, he's in there with his manager, that personal concierge, George Iceman. And those guys are going in there. All them 6 guys are going up against Leon Slater. So we've got those 7 guys competing in this match. And let's see here. Now, I was kind of surprised to hear that TNA has actually done 55 Ultimate X matches, since the company started in 2002, because they don't do them very much anymore. You rarely ever see this. Now it's maybe a once-a-year thing or something like that. What the heck, But anyway, they've done 55 of these Ultimate X matches, which are actually pretty good. They've been pretty good in the past. Now, I don't think this one wasn't bad, but I mean, relative to the ones that they did decades ago, it didn't meet expectations for me anyway. But anyway, so anyway, in this match, this is Cedric Alexander's first title defense. And I thought the ending of this match was absolute bullcrap. As I was talking to you about before, okay? In this match, you're supposed to climb up the middle truss, then you go trusses, and then you go and you scale your way across the cables that are going across the ring, and you go and pull the TNA X Division Championship down. You have to drop to the floor of the ring. Both your feet have to touch the floor. But the thing was, Okay, the end of the match here, we have Leon Slater and Amazing Red. They're both, up there hanging on to the cables, for dear life, trying to pull the TNA X Division Championship down. And then, Leon Slater, he manages to yank it out of Amazing Red's grasp. But then the thing was, Cedric Alexander, he just runs by and grabs it out of Leon Slater's hands. And, and then all of a sudden the bell rings and they declare Cedric Alexander the champion. What the hell? Cedric Alexander, he never climbed up them trusses. He never, scaled his way across those cables going across the ring. He didn't do that. All he did was grab it out of Leon Slater's hands. And since he was already said, well, if you had to touch the floor, well, he was already standing on the ring floor, so they just declared him the winner. What a lousy, crummy finish to that match it was. I never seen an Ultimate X match end in a crummy finish like that. But maybe that match had the potential to be the absolute runaway match of the show, the best match on the show. But I figured since they did that so early in the show, they didn't want to do that. They figured, well, we don't want to show up all the future matches later on the show. That people will be like, well, you know what? We want to make that kind of crummy because we don't want to make it look like, oh my God, we don't want to make the wrestlers feel like, oh my God, how are we going to follow that? That match was so blow away, we'll never be able to top that, So that's why they kind of made it a crummier than usual Ultimate X match. But, a big disappointment for me. What was a lot better was TNA Impact on, I think, June 25th. They had a 6-man tag team match involving 6 of the 7 members of that Ultimate X match going up against each other, and that was great. That was excellent. That was a match that was built to hype up this Ultimate X match. That match was on free television or on basic cable on AMC. That was way better than this crummy Ultimate X match. That was so much more violent on TNA Impact. It was the main event of TNA Impact from June 25th, 2026. That was so much better. This Ultimate X match, it just didn't deliver to me at all. All right, so next, let's see what's going to happen here. Next up, they played a segment, a tribute to Amazing Red, and they announced that he officially will be going into the TNA Hall of Fame in October 2026 when they do the TNA Hall of Fame ceremony at TNA, Bound for Glory 2026 in October this year. So there you have that. So now we know that so far, we know in the TNA Hall of Fame, it's going to be Amazing Red along with ODB, both getting inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame coming up in not that many months from now in October 2026. Up next, we have another match. This one actually, even though it has a ridiculously stupid storyline, it actually was a good match. But the storyline was like, what the frick? Who the hell's writing up these garbage scripts, Maybe that's one of the reasons why Tommy Dreamer got fired from TNA. He's the one probably that's writing all these lousy storylines and stuff, what the hell, It sounds like something he probably would have came up with, I don't know. But anyway, we have match 4 on the event here, and here we have AJ Francis, formerly known as Top Dollar in WWE. He's in there against Elijah, formerly known as the Drifter, Elias Sampson in WWE. And this had a really ridiculous, nonsensical storyline to it where they were pretending that AJ Francis bought the rights to Elijah's name, his music, his intellectual property, his image and likeness, even though Elijah never put any of this stuff up for sale. They made it sound, okay, well, now, because Elijah, he still does the gimmick where he, where he does that, he plays the guitar in TNA and he does the, who wants to, but he doesn't say who wants to walk with Elias. He just says, who wants to walk with Elijah, so, and he still does the singing with the acoustic guitar and everything like that. So basically they're pretending AJ Francis bought the rights to all this music and, and to Elijah's likeness and everything. And they have where AJ Francis, he's saying he's going to sue Elijah, for playing Elijah's own music and even for looking like Elijah. Because they're saying, hey, because he's saying, hey, I have the rights to your likeness and your appearance, so basically I own you and all that kind of stuff. So it's a stupid, ridiculous storyline, where basically the stipulation of this match is if Elijah wins, he gets the rights to his music, intellectual property, image, and likeness back. And here we see a debut on TNA Wrestling. We see AJ Francis. He now has a manager, unless this was just going to be some guy doing a one-shot deal, which you never know. A lot of times in TNA Wrestling, because, I don't know, they're not doing so well as a company, lots of times they debut these people, and then these people come out they come out one or two times, and then you never see them on TV, on TNA television, on their television shows or their pay-per-views ever again. That's the way it goes so much with this company. What the frick, So they debuted AJ Francis' manager. It might only be his manager for the night, who knows. But anyway, this guy was called Expressions. That's his name. So when I first saw him on TV and I saw they were calling him Expressions, like, what are they saying? I'm like, what is he from? Is he from like a soft rock group called the Expressions? Kind of like, whatever, the Blue Notes or the Manhattans or something like that. But anyway, this guy's called Expressions, and he's a heel manager of AJ Francis. And in this match here, Expressions did 2 outside distractions against Elijah and then physically interfered against Elijah later in the match. And later on, Expressions got in the ring with Elijah's guitar, intending to use it as a weapon, but Elijah took it and smashed it over Expressions' head to take him out of the rest of the match. And basically, in the end, Elijah had a good, solid, decisive win in a match that I thought was pretty good. In a match that lasted 9 minutes and 10 seconds, so Elijah can now reclaim his intellectual property for this storyline. It's in this match. The match was good. I mean, I know I see people on social media talking about they don't like AJ Francis. They don't like his matches. I think he's perfectly fine. I mean, in my opinion, his matches are good. He's doing a lot better than what he used to do back when he was on WWE SmackDown. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, if you disagree with that, that's fine. We're all entitled to our own opinion. That's all right, But I think AJ Francis' matches in TNA are usually good. And I thought AJ Francis versus Elijah, I thought it was a good match. It was a pretty violent, intense match, and it had some pretty damn impressive moves, So, hey, I liked it. So I'm sorry if you didn't, but I thought it was pretty good. Anyway, we have match 5 on the event. Up next, we have the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship match here. Here we have Rosemary and Allie. You might know Allie. She's formerly known as Laura Dennis in TNA years ago. Then she changed her name to Allie. Now Allie was also in TNA going by the name, quote-unquote, The Bunny, as well. Now, Rosemary and Allie, they're in there against Heather by Elegance and M by Elegance. They're the current TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions. They're out there with the personal concierge, George Iceman, and also with Ash by Elegance, who is formerly Dana Brooke of WWE. And Heather and M by Elegance, they've had the tag team titles for the last 164 days, but here's the thing. They haven't defended them in a little over 4 months. So it's like, what the hell? Can you spare it? Can you please do a tag team championship? What the heck? So anyway, they're not that great of a tag team anyway. So if they're rarely ever on TV, it's not like anybody's missing them. I mean, what the hell, Although I will say they have gotten a lot better over time because, I mean, oh my God. I mean, this team, you would have seen them 6 months ago, you'd be thinking, why do they even bother having these people on TV at all? They suck, Anyway, so in this match here, I mean, it's just a bunch of chaos. We have Ash by Elegance, formerly known as Dana Brooke in WWE. She's interfering against Rosemary already at 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the match by knocking Rosemary to the concrete floor. And, Rosemary, she's trying to do a submission hold, a spider submission hold on M by Elegance, kind of very similar to how Tajiri used to do it, where he would hang on to the ropes, on the outside the ropes by the ring apron, and he would do a submission hold on to somebody. Well, basically, we got Ash by Elegance. She's interfering against Rosemary, knocking Rosemary to the concrete floor when she's doing that. And then later on, we have the personal concierge interfering against Rosemary by knocking Rosemary off the ring apron on her ass as Ash by Elegance was distracting the referee, back when Allie was she's trying to tag out the Rosemary there. So then we have, and they talk about how, okay, Heather by Elegance and M by Elegance, they're the longest reigning TNA Knockouts Women's Tag Team Champions. With that, they have 202 days as champions, with both their title reigns combined, because they rarely ever defended them. They probably only defended them 2 or 3 times in those 202 days. So whoop-de-freaking-do, what the hell? Why even bother mentioning it if they only had 2 or 3 tag team title defenses? Anyway, next we have Ash by Elegance interfering against Rosemary again. This time she's pulling her out to the concrete floor when Rosemary's pinning M by Elegance. And then we have Ash by Elegance. She's then trying to hide behind the personal concierge, George Iceman, and tried to get the personal concierge to fight against Rosemary. But Rosemary, she just spit a green mist right into the personal concierge's eyes. And then Heather by Elegance, she tried to do a finishing move onto Rosemary off the top rope, but Rosemary moved. And then Heather by Elegance inadvertently nailed M by Elegance there. So then you have, after, Rosemary and Allie do a few finishing moves, and we have Rosemary and Allie had a solid, decisive win in the end. And when Rosemary pinned Heather by Elegance, so now Rosemary and Allie, they are now the new TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions. So, and this is where you see more of this silly nonsense that TNA is doing the storyline-wise, because what they're doing is they've been pretending that Allie is basically somebody who passed away back in 2019, so they're doing that paranormal kind of science fiction storyline where so they have Allie, they're pretending she's the soul of somebody who passed away in 2019, and they'll do the trick photography where they pretend she's all of a sudden, she just appears out of nowhere, appears in thin air, and then she disappears in thin air. So they're doing that kind of funny business. But I haven't seen any wrestling company really doing funny business like that since maybe Lucha Underground. They had a female wrestler, they were pretending she was a ghost. So that, that was many years back, and they were pretending, okay, she just appears and disappears out of nowhere and stuff, But anyway, so that's the storyline they've been given to Allie, where they pretend she's a ghost of a departed soul and everything. Anyway, this match for the TNA Knockouts World Championship, Tag Team World Championship, that would lasted about 9 minutes and 40 seconds. It was entertaining, I think. I didn't think it was bad or anything like that. It was good, nice to see Allie and Rosemary win the tag team titles. And our next match here, we had, this was an interesting one. We had a no disqualification TNA International Championship match here. And here we have Mustafa Ali, the current TNA International Champion. He was formerly in WWE, you may recall. And he's out there with his cohort, accompanying to the ring with Tasha Steelz. And this was Mustafa Ali. He's defending the TNA International Championship against 2 mystery opponents. And then we find out the first mystery opponent is a former WWE wrestler who's been with TNA for many, many years. We have Rich Swann. He's formerly of WWE. Now, Rich Swann he's a former TNA World Champion and a former TNA X Division Championship champion as well. Now, he's really good. Matches with Rich Swann, they're always good. I don't think I've ever been disappointed by his matches. And then we find out who's the next mystery opponent here from Mustafa Ali to defend his championship against. We find out it's no other than former WWE wrestler that got terminated earlier this year, Apollo Crews. So there you go. That's big. That's some big news. That's good news there. Because Apollo Crews, in my opinion, he's great, but unfortunately WWE, they had him under contract for 10 years. Really didn't do a whole heck of a lot with him most of the time, what the heck? Most of the time that they had him had him under payroll, they had him losing all the time, even though he's a really talented wrestler. They started off pushing the guy big. They had him being like an Intercontinental Champion, a U.S. Champion. But then as time went on, the only time you ever saw him usually was kind of on their weekly show, WWE Main Event, which is only watched by like hardcore fans like myself. So they'd have him on there, and then, they'd have him, usually losing and stuff like that. They had him on the main roster shows and stuff, which was a shame because he's a really talented guy. So I was really glad to see Apollo Crews joining the TNA roster so that he can have some really great matches and show how talented he really is. So anyway, Apollo Crews, he's going back to the name that he used before he got into WWE. He's going by the name Uhaa Nation. So that's all that's going there. Now, this match was great, for most of it until they gave it the screw job ending at the end. Now, thing was, okay, the first 8 minutes, they were great, as you would expect, but, here we go. Now, at the end is where everything goes to shit. Now, okay, now we get to the point where all the bull crap starts. Now, at the end, we got Tasha Steelz coming out. Tasha Steelz, she's distracting Uhaa Nation, formerly known as Apollo Crews, at 8 minutes and 20 seconds into the match. And then we have Mustafa Ali's cohort, Agent Zero, coming out, and he's distracting Uhaa Nation, and which led to Mustafa Ali getting the upper hand on Uhaa Nation. And then we have Agent Zero. He then ends up burying Uhaa Nation under the steel ring steps. We had the steel ring steps. They've been taken apart into a couple of sections. So we have Agent Zero. He drags Apollo Crews out there. He has him lying on the ring floor. He takes a couple of sections of the steel ring steps and puts the ring steps on top of Uhaa Nation like that, So, and then we have the action back inside the ring where Rich Swann, he gets to do like a fancy move there onto Mustafa Ali, but Mustafa Ali reverses it into a backslide pin, and then ends up following it up with a bridge pin on Rich Swann. So Mustafa Ali, he gets a lousy underhanded win after help from his cohorts Tasha Steelz and Agent Zero. So there you go. TNA ruined what would have been a great match with a lousy ending, like they so often like to do. They so often like to, they give these matches that could have been great, and then they ruin it at the end by giving it a screw job finish. So there you go. Congratulations, TNA. You ruined another great match. There you go. Up next, we have match number 7 on the event. We have a no disqualification, no surrender match here. Now, I never heard of a match like this before, but anyway, here's what this involved. Basically, this is Eddie Edwards along with his cohort and wife Alicia Edwards out there against Moose, along with Johnny Dango Curtis, otherwise known as JDC. He's formerly Fandango of WWE. Now, JDC or Fandango, whatever you want to call him. Now, he recently retired from TNA, so he was back for the show for like a one-shot deal, making a one-shot appearance. Now, in this match, this no surrender match, there's no pinfalls, no submissions, there's no countouts. Basically, what happens here is whoever's corner man or corner woman in this case throws in the towel, they lose, okay? If Alicia Edwards decides Eddie Edwards has had too much punishment, if Alicia Edwards throws in the towel, Eddie Edwards loses. And, and same thing with Moose. If JDC decides to throw in the towel, Moose can't take anymore, then Moose loses. All right, so I thought they did a good job here. It was a pretty violent, intense match here. And basically, we have Eddie Edwards. He attacked Moose before the bell even rang, as Moose was trying to get into the ring here. And later on in the match, we had Eddie Edwards. He zip-tied both of Moose's arms to the middle rope, and Eddie Edwards was hitting Moose in the head with a kendo stick. Now, Moose's wife, she got out of the front row in the show there, and she was trying to get JDC to throw in the towel, and she about grabbed the towel out of JDC's hands to throw it in herself. But Eddie Edwards then, he ended up attacking Moose's wife, and by knocking her to the concrete floor. And then Eddie Edwards went to attack Moose's teenage son, and but then the teenage son gave Eddie Edwards a low blow, and Moose's wife, she ended up, slapping Alicia Edwards pretty hard in the face there. And Moose managed to break out of the zip ties. Seeing how people were messing with his family, it really gave him he was more motivated than ever to try to get out of them zip ties there. And Moose started destroying Eddie Edwards, and and Eddie Edwards was bleeding from the mouth after a big spear there. And like they were trying to put it over as if this was, internal bleeding or whatever. At the announcer's desk, they were saying that. And then Alicia Edwards, she's seeing Eddie Edwards bleeding from the mouth. And Alicia Edwards, she gets in the ring and she throws in the towel right there. And leading to Moose getting a solid, decisive win in this match that lasted about 13 minutes from bell to bell there. Now, after the match, Moose was going to attack Eddie Edwards still further, but it looked like JDC, he was trying to stop him, so I was kind of surprised to see that, so I was like, all right, now what's going to happen here? Is JDC going to turn on Moose or something and go back to be in cohorts with Eddie Edwards or something like that? That's what I was wondering about, but no, they didn't do that. The storyline was JDC, he stopped Moose from attacking Eddie Edwards because JDC, he wanted to personally attack, Eddie Edwards. So JDC goes in there and he gives Eddie Edwards a stunner, kind of like the Stone Cold Stunner move that Stone Cold Steve Austin did. And then Moose, he ends up spearing both Alicia Edwards and Eddie Edwards through a cafeteria table to end this segment, because Moose he'd been tired of getting all the abuse from Alicia Edwards and Eddie Edwards, so he figured he ended up putting both of them through a cafeteria table. So there you go. So I thought it was a satisfying match. I liked it. So anyway, I'm sure maybe you disagree with it, but hey, I liked it anyway. But anyway. In our next match, we have match 8 on this event here. We have a TNA Knockouts World Championship match here. We have Xia Brookside, formerly of WWE NXT UK. You might recall her being on there. Now, she's going up against the current TNA Knockouts World Champion, Lei Ying Lee, who's formerly known as Xia Li of WWE. Now, in this match here, we have, here's where the problem started coming in. Because, unfortunately, in this match and the next match, lots of technical glitches. We kept having the picture was going out. The sound was going out. And it wasn't just me. It was just, it was a lot of people having, because I even checked online. I'm like, is this just me? Because I restarted my computer, and I figured, and it was still happening. So I figured, okay, I'm watching this on my computer, so that way if I want to go back and watch some big move that happened, it's a lot easier to rewind when you're watching on a 24-inch computer screen than from the smart TV that I have. It's just easier to do it there versus on a smart television. The smart TV doesn't react as fast as the computer does. So I'm watching it on a 24-inch screen on the computer, and I'm like, I restart the computer. I'm still having all these technical glitches. And then I put it on the smart TV, and I'm watching on the smart TV, and I'm still having all these technical glitches. So I look it up online. I'm like, yeah, everybody was having tons of technical glitches during match 8 and 9 of this event. I'm like, oh my God, So anyway, that's what kind of killed this match and the next match for me. But, anyway, in this match here, we have now towards the end, Xia Brookside, she inadvertently rips off the top turnbuckle cover, trying to avoid being powerbombed by Lei Ying Lee. But Lei Ying Lee, she powerbombs Xia Brookside anyway there. But however, and then later, Lei Ying Lee, she climbs to the top rope to do a move off the top rope. But Xia Brookside, she knocks Lei Ying Lee off that top rope, and Lei Ying Lee falls face first onto that exposed top turnbuckle. Now, Xia Brookside then pins Lei Ying Lee and wins the match and becomes the new TNA Knockouts champion. So, Xia Brookside, she's winning the TNA Knockouts championship for the first time in her career with an underhanded win, you could say, because she pulled that top turnbuckle off that and then, intentionally made Lei Young Lee fall face first into that top turnbuckle there. So anyway, I don't know. So far, I don't know. A lot of it had to do with maybe the fact that the sound in the picture kept going out, and all that. I don't know. I thought this was one of the crummier matches on the show and stuff. And it wasn't bad. I didn't think it was bad, but I mean that the sound in the picture going out with them technical difficulties that everybody was having apparently. And I hope that they fix it on the replay. The thing was, I watched the replay. I wasn't actually watching it when the show officially aired from 3 to 7 p.m. on Sunday, June 28th. But that sound and the picture were going out, even on the replay. So hopefully they fix that eventually, because that was ridiculous. And anyway, so we have Xia Brookside win the TNA Knockouts World Championship there for the first time in her career. Now, up next, we have a segment here. They're doing a promo for TNA's next pay-per-view, which is going to be TNA Lockdown 2026 on Sunday, August 23rd, 2026 in Chicago, Illinois. Now, it's the first time that they're doing a Lockdown pay-per-view in TNA in like 10 years. Now, what's special about the Lockdown pay-per-views, of course, is every match on the whole pay-per-view is contested inside a steel cage. So that's what's interesting about that. And they haven't done that in 10 years, And they're going to be filming this at the Credit Union One Arena in Chicago, Illinois. And then they also announced, for the first time in many years, they just announced for the first time today, they say, well, for the first time in 9 years, okay, TNA will be doing another Destination X pay-per-view on November 15th, 2026 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada at the Edmonton Expo Center. So we're going to be probably seeing another one of those Ultimate X matches, and this time, because it's called Destination X, they'll probably have a much longer, much better Ultimate X match than they ever had with this 10-minute match that just seemed like it ended far too soon, I was expecting so many more of these huge, big moves and everything like that. And then when I ended in 10 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I've ever seen an Ultimate X match be over and done with that quick before, But with this other next pay-per-view called Destination X, they're bound to have longer, and maybe they'll even do several Ultimate X matches and stuff, which would be pretty interesting to see. Anyway, up next, we have match 9 of the event here. We have another no disqualification match. It's a no disqualification ladder match for the TNA World Tag Team Championship here. Here we have, it's 4 teams going up against each other. We have Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy, which of course you know them from WWE and even in AEW. Now, they're in TNA right now, of course, and they're up in there against the Righteous, known as Vincent and Dutch. They're kind of like a combination between the legendary soft rock singers Seals and Crofts, combined with, like, say, Cheech and Chong. That's the way I kind of see them, Seals and Crofts mixed with Cheech and Chong and stuff. But and they're in there versus Jason Hodge and John Schuyler of the faction Order 4 with Mustafa Ali. But Mustafa Ali didn't come out in this match. We just had Jason Hodge and John Schuyler coming out there, and they're in there against the current TNA World Tag Team Champions, Bear Bronson, who spent 5 years in AEW, and he's out there with his tag team partner, Brian Myers, and who's formerly known as, the infamous jobber Kurt Hawkins of WWE. Now, when Vince McMahon terminated Kurt Hawkins, it's like, he was up to, they were doing his gimmick was the crazy long losing streak. They had him up to at least 264 consecutive losses. So you see how different things can be for a wrestler from one company to the next. Vince McMahon, he's got Kurt Hawkins out there doing at least 264 consecutive losses. Now TNA hires them, and now TNA has him being like the World Tag Team Champion and all that. Good Lord there. So anyway, we got Bear Bronson and Brian Myers. They're defending their TNA World Tag Team Championship belts here. Now, here you need to climb a ladder and pull the TNA Tag Team title belts down to get the win here. Now, this match basically, they also involved tables in it. So it was basically kind of like a tables and ladders match, here. But that's fine because it's a no disqualification match here. Now, what was horrible about this match was it was bad because it's like the reception was absolute dog shit, because this is where the shit hit the fan. You know, it's like it was constant, nonstop. The picture and the sound were constantly going out with technical glitches. So hopefully TNA will do on their replay. Hopefully they'll get that fixed so people can see what that match was. Because, I mean, it looked like, from what I saw, it looked like a great match, but you couldn't see most of it. The picture and the sound were constantly going out. That's the thing, you know? So I don't know really how good it really genuinely was, because the sound and picture were always going out. At one point, they lost the feed altogether for like 12 seconds. It's like the feed just completely crashed, and it wasn't just me, it was for everybody. That was a shame too. So hopefully they get that fixed and they show the full uncut, you know, complete version of the match, especially, and the version of the match that happened before too, without all these technical glitches, because they gotta have that film. They gotta have that filmed without all these technical glitches. They can fix that, you know. So it's a matter, if they go back and they fix it, hey, I'm more than happy to go back and watch it without the sound and the picture going out constantly. So let's see what happens here. Now, anyway, so with all those glitches, it made it for a tough watch. It's like, come on, TNA, let's get it together here. I don't know if there was a lot more people watching the pay-per-view live than what they thought, so they didn't have the right bandwidth, you know, or I don't know what it was. I don't know why why it was such dog shit, you know, for the reception with the sound and picture. But anyway, now they did this stupid storyline part of it where I was like, oh, come on, don't tell me they're doing this again, you know? They did this stupid bullshit where Vince of the Righteous, he sticks this, what's supposed to be a poisonous, like, lily of the valley flower into Brian Myers' mouth, and I thought Brian Myers spit it out, like, you know, like almost immediately, like right away, but already they're making Brian Myers look like he's going like brain dead from having this thing in his mouth for like a second. And that's the same garbage that they did on what I thought was TNA's worst no disqualification match ever. It was right. And it was like, you know, right around when Tommy Dreamer got fired, right before that. So I'm like, well, maybe it was like, hey, could have been one of the things that was like the last straw. They're tired of Tommy Dreamer writing all these garbage scripts, you know. I mean, for God's sake, that no disqualification match a few weeks ago, it was called what, like a Wicked Garden match, you know, where it was the Hardys against the Righteous, Vincent and Dutch, you know. And it was the worst no disqualification match I ever saw. It was so freaking boring. I've never seen anything that bad before, you know. So I'm like, oh my God, it was terrible. I couldn't believe it. And I had high hopes for it. And then when I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, this is almost as bad as that. I guess probably one of the second worst no disqualification match I ever saw, which is back in November of last year when they had Matt and Jeff Hardy versus the Cologne the Cologne cousins or whatever, Primo Cologne and Epico Cologne. They had, you know, Primo and Epico. They used to be in WWE. I guess now they're going by Eddie Cologne and Orlando Cologne. And they had them in this match. There was a match that TNA had actually, they had recorded it in March of 2025. They never actually aired it on TNA television until November 2025 because it sucked so bad. And they figured no wonder it was edited off the show, and they just put it on that show in November 2025 when the company was on hiatus and all that, and they just needed something to take up some time on a weekly episode. It was horrible, and the commentary made it that much worse. I'm like, who the hell is right? Is this Tommy Dreamer writing this garbage? They were pretending. They had Tom Hannafin, who's formerly known as Tom Phillips of WWE. They had him out there. You know, and he's doing the announcing with Matt Raywalt, who's formerly known as Aiden English in WWE, and they had Tom Hannafin pretending that he had like pissed himself, you know, watching this match and all that, and it was so freaking boring. That's what made it even more ridiculous. Like, why the hell is this guy pretending like, because like the Colognes and the Hardys, they were battling close to the announcer's desk, and like Tom Hannafin, he's like asking if he could have a replacement chair because he pissed himself, you know, like watching this match. It's like, and then Matt Raywald, he's like, well, I don't need an extra chair. Maybe they can bring out an extra chair for you. I don't need one. Maybe they can bring one out for you. It was so ridiculous because the match was so freaking boring. And then they have Tom Hannafin doing this. And I don't blame Hannafin for saying what he said. I mean, I know, like, he's just saying what the script of the show was telling him to say, but it's like, why are they telling him to say such stupid, ridiculous shit for a match that's as freaking boring as this? It's crazy, I mean, but anyway, let's get back to the current match at hand here where, okay, so they got Brian Myers pretending he's brain dead because he had this poisonous flower in his mouth for like a second and he spit it right out. So now, all right, so it just looks so stupid. They're pretending Brian Myers is like brain dead right now. So, but anyway, it had some really incredible spots on it. I mean, hard to say exactly what was going on with the sound and picture going out like in most of the show. But anyway, towards the end, when the reception got a little better, they did this incredible spot where they had 2 cafeteria tables set up on top of 2 other cafeteria tables outside the ring. And basically, they had 2 of these ladders set up inside the ring. We had, what was it, Dutch from the Righteous. He was climbing up one ladder. And then they had Bear Bronson. He was climbing up another ladder. Well, anyway, Matt and Jeff Hardy, they come in, and they end up knocking both of those ladders over, and Dutch of the Righteous and Bear Bronson, both their ladders go toppling over, and Dutch and Bear Bronson, they go toppling through all 4, crashing through all 4 of those cafeteria tables outside the ring. So, oh my God, that was an incredible spot right there. Then they did another incredible spot where they had the Hardys put Jason Hodge and John Schuyler lying on top of a metal ladder, perpendicular, parallel to the concrete floor there. And they had Jeff Hardy, he scales all the way to the top of this tall ladder there. He does this big dive off, sends John Schuyler and Jason Hodge smashing right through those those ladders right there. And basically, I mean, some incredible spots right there. Ended up with Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy scaling the ladder. They both pulled the tag titles down. And so Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy, they're your new TNA World Tag Team Champions. So there you have it there. So up next, they did a segment where they announced that Conan, formerly of WCW, they're going to be putting Conan in the TNA Hall of Fame this year. So now we know at TNA Bound for Glory, we're going to see ODB, Amazing Red, and Conan all going into the TNA Hall of Fame there at the same time. Up next, we have our TNA World Championship match here. This is match 10 on this event here. And here we have Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler of WWE, going in there against the current TNA World Champion, Mike Santana. A lot of rumors going around recently, whether they say Mike Santana, his contract is about to expire, so don't know if Mike Santana is he going to stick with TNA, or people are saying, yeah, he's looking at WWE, also is an option. So anyway, you figure this would be a good match and all that, so let's see what's going on with this here. Now, 5 minutes into the match, we got Ryan Nemeth, Nick Nemeth's brother, comes out, and he's getting into the ring to distract Mike Santana, and the referee ejected Ryan Nemeth to the back almost immediately. And the thing is, like, as the ref was trying to get Ryan Nemeth to leave and go to the back, we have Nick Nemeth hitting Mike Santana in the head with a large gold trophy that Nick Nemeth won months ago, that gave him a future TNA World title shot. It's kind of like TNA's version of the Money in the Bank briefcase. You get this in TNA, you get this, large gold trophy where you can cash it in at any time for a TNA World title shot. So basically, Nick Nemeth, he hits Mike Santana in the head with this huge gold trophy there. And Mike Santana's head is all like bloody after that right there. And basically, unfortunately, I mean, Nick Nemeth, he got a underhanded victory and became the new TNA World Championship, or new TNA World Champion right here. after his move, the Danger Zone. But, of course, I'll put it down as a lousy, underhanded win. Says Nick Nemeth, he had the help of his brother, Ryan Nemeth, doing the distraction, and Nick Nemeth using underhanded methods, taking that huge gold trophy and hitting Mike Santana in the head with that. So, basically, and I figure like I was saying, is they probably did it because they don't know. Like, Mike Santana, is he going to stick with TNA? They don't really know as of right now, so they figure they don't want to have Mike Santana have the TNA World Championship belt if he decides he's not going to stick with the company. If he's going to go to WWE or AEW or wherever, So they figure it'd be a safer bet to just put it on Nick Nemeth. At least we know Nick Nemeth is sticking around in TNA. So, anyway, we see in the match, Mike Santana losing consciousness right before Nick Nemeth doing his finishing move. Match ran for 14 minutes and 47 seconds, so I thought it was well played out and stuff. And let's see, it's also on the show, we just seen some of the usuals. We saw Santina Morella, the TNA Director of Authority, formerly of WWE, and also Daria Ray, who, if you haven't seen her in TNA recently, that's Sonya Deville, formerly of WWE. They have her being kind of like an assistant heel, an assistant GM towards, Santina Morello there, who's the TNA Director of Authority, and the usual Gia Miller doing the interviewing and Mackenzie Mitchell doing the ring announcing. Overall, I like this show way better than WWE Night of Champions that was on Saturday, June 27th. I mean, not that I really had a problem with WWE Night of Champions. I mean, I thought it was a decent show and all that. I mean, there was only one match that I flat out hated, the match, the WWE Women's United States Championship match between Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton that I didn't like because of all the constant cheating and interference and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, Night of Champions wasn't a bad show, but I thought TNA Slammiversary, I thought it was a lot better, it was a lot more entertaining, and I'm sorry if that's, if we're butting heads in there and if you thought differently and all that. That was just my opinion of it and stuff. And, of course, your usual announcers, Tom Hannafin, formerly known as Tom Phillips of WWE, and, Matthew Raywalt, formerly Aiden English of WWE. But, yeah, I mean, the TNA Slammiversary, I mean, it's one of those shows, it's like, yeah, it did have some incredible moves and some really good wrestling on it, I thought. I thought it was better than WWE Night of Champions, and, well, that's pretty much the story of that. And but I think what's the really outstanding show of this weekend, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to see it pretty soon, AEW Forbidden Door 2026. That's what I think is going to be the absolute blow-away show of this weekend. Especially if you saw All Elite Wrestling Double or Nothing 2026 that aired on May 24th, 2026, that was an absolute blow-away show. Wouldn't be surprised. That's the best pay-per-view or best premium live event of the entire year. It's crazy what All Elite Wrestling is doing. It's like they just put WWE to shame and stuff. And it's crazy how All Elite Wrestling, they did such an incredible pay-per-view on May 24th, and then I think it was right around May 31st, WWE did Clash of Italy, which was such a boring premium live event. To me, it seemed like it was just another episode of like SmackDown, just another episode of Raw or something. It's like, what the heck? You think All Elite Wrestling doing such a violent, incredible, pay-per-view, you think that WWE would be trying to step up their game and trying to do better, but no, they're not, It's weird, So, oh my God. So it's like if you haven't been watching All Elite Wrestling, and I'll tell you what, if you're kind of resistant to it, I honestly think if you see that entire event, and the event lasted, if you include the countdown show, which that right there had three exclusive matches right there. It was hosted by Mick Foley and Renee Paquette, that you would know. Of course, obviously, both of them from WWE, but I'm telling you, you see that whole 5-hour and 10-minute event, All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing, 2026. If you kind of don't really think you'll like AEW, I'm telling you, it'll make a believer out of you. You'll think it'll make WWE seem so much worse by comparison. Oh my God. Anyway, so that's just my 2 cents. So, and your opinion may vary, obviously, but hey, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.